Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Shamel back with another reaction episode. This reaction is actually going to take place of today's podcast, and I'm gonna put the podcast out tomorrow because meaning Monday, because I'm supposed to do every Sunday. During the recording session, I wasn't really a fan of how the podcast turned out. I really want to be able to get in and dig and give you guys as much knowledge as I can give you as far as single parenting for mothers is concerned when raising boys. I don't want to put content out just for the sake of putting out the content. With that being said, this is the girl who set her boyfriend up and got him, and we'll figure that out as we go through this. I'm going to start out by saying women understand the grimy stuff that goes on within side of you. So when you're raising your boys, the number one thing that you want to do is put them on that game. Do not fall for that toxic masculinity stuff right now. You don't need weak, meek men that's desperate and bowing down and simping and being taken advantage of. You do not want your son to be taken advantage of. Yes, well, when we get to the podcast episode, we'll talk about gentlemanliness and the art of manliness and all of that other stuff that comes along with raising your boy, and speak about reverence and all of that other stuff that goes into it. But these are the types of things that you want your boys to be aware of. And you understand just how grimy and gutter women can get when they feel that they want something or they need something or they deserve something or their emotions get attached into a situation. So, again, without prolonging this, do not forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button, share, hit the little bell icon so you know when I'm uploading new content. It's not easy being a content creator, and I'm starting to learn the hard way. There's so much that goes on in this with this in the background that normal people scrolling through YouTube don't understand. So, getting into this, the girl who set up her boyfriend to get him.
On January 3rd, 4 p.m. local time, police were called following reports of an attack that happened in a town called Reading, Berkshire, and this is in England. But unfortunately, though, the boy that the emergency calls were made for passed away at the scene while trying to fight for his life, and he died by a knife wound made to the back of his neck by the sword that you guys are seeing right here on your screens. I mean, it's a really sad situation, and this kid was unfortunately the victim of the narcissism and selfishness of the people around him. So in today's video, I'm going to be going into the details of what happened to him, why it happened, and the aftermath that took place. Oliver, or Ollie for short, as his friends and family called him, is a 13-year-old boy who went to a local school named Highdown in his town of Reading, England. According to his parents, though, Ollie was diagnosed with autism and was suspected to have something called pathological demand avoidance. This means that not only did Ollie have trouble communicating and behaving normally, but he also had a tendency to go against what he was told to do. And it may seem like I'm trying to put this kid in a bad light to some of you, but nah, that's not what I'm trying to do at all. I just wanted to shed some light on the difficulties that this kid was already going through before his life was unfortunately stripped away from him. And the most painful part about this whole situation is that Ollie didn't even die on the spot when he was stabbed. After the incident, he was fighting for his life, trying to make his way back home from the park of which he was stabbed at. And the witnesses who saw this kid, this random kid, stumbling and stabbed with blood covered all over him, tried to revive him and did what they could do to keep Ollie alive until the paramedics could arrive. But sadly, it was a failed attempt.
That's good people. That is real good people. People that saw him suffer and they tried to be of help to him. You have to really be willing to know who your children are around. That's a huge, huge feat for a parent, is finding out who their friends are, and learning their parents you can tell a lot about a kid, not just from watching the child, because we should be able to read children enough to know who's a good influence and who's a bad influence. But you should be able to read a lot about the children that your particular child is around through their parents. You have to make an effort to actually go up and speak to their parents, get to learn their personalities enough to where you know that something is off about them. Doesn't have to be every day, it doesn't have to be all the time, but know their names, know what their personalities are like, know what their morals are. Actually get to know the parents of your children's friends.
However, as of now, what we know from officials is that his murder was conspired by a group of teenagers, a girl and a boy aged 13 and another boy aged 14.
Of course, look at this.
From officials is that his murder was conspired.
Look at this 13-year-old. She has on lip gloss, her eyebrows are done. Look at how she has her hair set up. Look at the shirt that she's wearing. I'm not sitting here trying to be a perv and creep on this young girl, right? But it's very unfortunate that now we live in such a hypersexualized society that this is what girls who should be kids at this time, that should be exploring kid things, that should still be into kid things, are set up to look like this and act like she did. That goes on to the parents. It really and truly does. Every child is going to do something wrong, but you should be able to step in immediately and end it. Give them the consequences that they need. We're going to get into all of that during the podcast. All right. Tomorrow. This is just a purview. This is the preview of what we're going to talk about.
By a group of teenagers, a girl and a boy aged 13 and another boy aged 14. All of them have been charged with conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm. And since then, they have been held in a youth detention custody center, and the date set for their trial is the 21st of June. And it was said that the trial itself would last anywhere from between 5 to 6 weeks, so it's going to be pretty drawn out. And during the hearing of their case, they were told that their crime was so heinous that if they were adults...
I'm going to get past this ad. Again, there's no reason, absolutely no reason why a 13-year-old should be walking around looking like that. And very often these kids, they get on TikTok and they see grown women dressed like that, and they see other kids that emulate these grown women, and then they start using each other as kids as examples, believing that this is how things should be, this is how things should go. Why won't you let me do what the other kids are doing? Guide and protect your children. Give them rope, but don't give them so much rope that they're able to tangle themselves up and hang themselves with it. That's first and foremost.
He landed 14 years in prison without a trial. In addition to those charges, the 13-year-old girl was also charged for perversion of the course of justice.
Look at that. The hoop earrings, the hair pulled back.
Charges, the 13-year-old girl...
That does not say 13. Again, the makeup, she's got her angles right. The shadows are right. The low cut. This is a little girl who's being allowed to grow beyond the stages that she's at. This is what you want to teach your young boys. This is what you want to teach your young boys to stay away from. Now, I understand the issues that this young man had. It was already put out in the beginning. But you have to be there. You have to know who he's around and why he's around them and what their parents are like. You have to know what you do not want in your child's life. For me and my son, A 13-year-old that looks like this. First off, at 13, you shouldn't even be worried about a relationship. Not even at 14 should you be worried about a relationship and who you're crushing on and all of that. Teach your children priorities first and foremost. What's important right now as you're getting into. I know you first you have to learn why you're feeling the way you feel. That starts from home. Let's keep getting into it.
Girl was also charged for perversion of the course of justice. In other words, she was found to not only delete information from her phone that linked her to the murder, but also told her accomplices to do so as well. Oliver's family described this ordeal as every parent's worst nightmare, and they extended a message of gratitude to everyone in the situation who tried to help in any way that they could, including an off-duty doctor who actually tried to save him when he found Oliver fighting his way home. I mean, this is brutal. Like, in his last dying seconds, this kid could think of nothing else but making his way back home to his parents, his mom, his dad, and his siblings. But as I said earlier in the video, Oliver studied in a school near his home called Highdown School, which was where people were laying flowers to pay him tribute. And to help Oliver's family with expenses such as funeral costs, especially during this crippling pandemic, his friends have set up a crowdfunding campaign with a goal of about £21,000 and is soon to be reaching that target. And actually, at the time of this recording, the goal has been met of £21,960. So it's good to know that Oliver's family and close ones are getting the financial help that they desperately need. And it's absolutely tragic that a murder happened in a park where people are supposed to be having fun at, family gatherings, picnics. You go there to walk your dog, hang out with your friends, or play catch, football, whatever the case may be. But now every time people go to that park, they'll be reminded of the heinous murder of a 13-year-old kid that took place there. And let's not forget that Ollie was diagnosed with autism, which means that he already had trouble communicating and navigating the world of being a teenager. Being 13 years old, he had his whole life ahead of him. But unfortunately, it was tragically cut short. The loss of Oliver Stevens has left a void in his family, and in their own description, an Ollie-sized hole has been left in our hearts. His older sister, Amelia, who was 16 at the time, put out a statement on her social media apologizing to him, saying, "I'm sorry I failed you. I wish I could have saved you from it all." And she ends it with a promise to pursue those who committed the crime. Quote, "We will get justice for you, my angel." Honestly, this is brutal. Now let's talk about the suspects in this case. And to start off, this is the information that I found on the internet, and not all of it is 100% verifiable, but they were constantly being circulated by people on different social media platforms. So take some of it with a grain of salt. First off is the 13-year-old girl named Skylar. She was apparently the girlfriend of Oliver Stevens, from what's been gathered on the internet. I saw this on Twitter the first day it took place. So here's how the story goes based on what I've heard. Ollie yelled at Skylar at a party for sending revealing pictures, which are nudes, of herself to other people. And he was mad at her for, basically cheating.
Yo, I get you want to teach your kids that they have privacy and they need to have a respect for privacy and all of that. But you have to be willing to go through your children's stuff. You really have to. There are people out there that are just complete pervs. And when we talk about teaching young boys how to be gentlemen, you have to keep them as best as you can away from these girls that are just moving way too fast. If you have them around people, if you have women that aren't able to respect themselves, kids that aren't able to, young girls that aren't able to respect themselves, they don't know what respecting themselves is, and they're putting themselves out there for these other boys, right? As they get older, they're going to start to think that things like that is normal, is natural, and is not. You have to be willing to have these conversations with your children. That is not normal. That is not what you do. The parents should have found this. It should have never came out in investigations. It should have never came out from high schoolers leaking it after a murder.
digitally. And Skylar, being the obviously narcissistic, entitled girl that she is, she didn't take that well and proceeded to put up a modern day bounty hunt on her boyfriend through Snapchat. I know it sounds weird, but apparently this is exactly what happened. But this is what she posted to Snapchat. She said, "My boyfriend has been pissing me off lately, and yesterday he shouted at me for sending nudes to someone else. So I want to set him up to get robbed or stabbed, but not killed. So just stab him in the hand or something to teach him a lesson. I will bring him to the destination for you to do it. Snap me if you want to do it. Need it done this week."
I know I shouldn't keep pausing it like this because y'all want to watch it. But this is sad, yo. This is sad. And that girl's parents should have known exactly what was going on. Mothers, talk to your sons. Fathers, talk to your sons. Fathers, especially, be in your sons' lives. Break this down for them. But it's very important for women to look at their kids and tell them the exact games that little girls are going to play because you've played them. You know the mind of women. Teach your sons the minds of women, not just to teach them to respect women and reverence and no means no and blah 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 and all that other stuff. No, have real conversations with your kids. All of that can be taught, but have a real conversation with your sons and let them know this is how certain women think. This is what certain women do. And you have to make sure that you're not that woman. You have to use yourself as an example. I'm not that. This is what you need to look out for. This is what can happen to you.
And of course, at the very top, you can see her price of what she was willing to pay out is $154 or pounds and 94p. So yeah, she posted what essentially is a bounty hunt on Snapchat with a price tag of what, 154 pounds, which translates to what, like $175, which I doubt a 13-year-old has. And on top of that, she said she would lure him to the destination for him to get robbed or, stabbed. However, upon my little bit of research I did, I found out that Skylar has a TikTok page that has quite a large following of about 25,000 followers, which is pretty impressive for a 13-year-old.
And I bet you, a majority of them are grown-ass men. I promise you that. I'll slap a pedophile. And I'm putting that right on the internet. I don't care.
But I mean, in this day and age, any girl, regardless of her age, seems to be pretty popular online. So that's not.
And that's sick. You talk about toxic masculinity. Let's really get out there and start outing simps. That's what needs to happen. We need to really start outing simps and pervs. How about we want to normalize everything else in society. Everything else. We want to make it to where our kids are exposed to things that have to do with adulthood and snatch the innocence out of our children. Let's normalize allowing children to be just that, children. That is very important and number one. This is the perfect. I'm so glad I decided to react to this. So glad, so happy I decided to react to this. These damn idiots out here, man. Adults that are not adults, but by anything but the title of their age.
That's not a surprise. But since the incident, it has been set to private. And since then, there has been a disgusting amount of copycat accounts out there trying to profit off of her crime. I guess they're trying to, steal the spotlight, the limelight, or the popularity of anybody who's trying to find her real account. And anytime something like this happens where someone kills someone else or someone commits a horrific crime, there are always copycat accounts out there. I just find it weird. It's bizarre, but if you try to contact any of these fake profiles, they're mostly filled with trolls. You'll actually get some responses from them, pretending to be Skylar, of course. Like this one that says, "I told you guys to rob him, not M him. and M in this context referring to murder. I guess like it's like a rush of dopamine to the brain for these people, who get to be in the spotlight for something that has nothing to do with them. However, upon the publication of this incident to the public, there was obviously a lot of outrage, and based on my research, people got a hold of her Snapchat username, her private phone number, her address. Like, I actually saw a picture of her docs. I found that. I don't know if it's illegal to download or screenshot a docs, but I did for research purposes. However, I obviously won't be sharing it in this video for legal reasons. And let me make this clear, I'm not condoning violence or any threats to a 13-year-old girl, even though she is an accomplice to a murder. But I do understand why people feel this way, because if that were my brother, and this 13-year-old girl was the direct cause of his death, I don't think I would take her age into consideration for what I might do to her if given the chance. I know it sounds fucked up, but the situation is brutal. It's tragic. But now let's move on to the guy who actually did the crime. According to what I found, the boy who stabbed Oliver Stevens in the neck and left him for dead has not officially been named by law enforcement. But there have been pictures circulating on the internet where the people who posted them claim that this is him. In the pictures that I found of this kid, you can clearly see that he has dirty blonde hair. He often wears a lot of black. He's throwing up gang signs. They look to be gang signs, I think. In another picture, this kid is posed up with I believe that's a hand sign for guns, as if he's holding one. He has a little chain around his neck. Pants are hanging off his hip, I don't know if he knows how to actually wear a belt. Clearly not. In another image, he's wearing all black, so clearly that's his color. I don't know what the hell. And maybe that's just a part of his image. But in this image, this is the most important one that I found, you can clearly see him posed up on an electric scooter, right? His face totally covered up. And in his hand is what appears to be a katana or some kind of sword. And I believe this kind of stuff is illegal in the UK. Like, you can't have knives or knives this large in your possession, especially at 13 years old. However, based on the clues that I've gathered, I believe that this is the murder weapon. This is the knife that the murderer, which is this kid, used to kill Oliver Stevens. And here's another view of the katana or the sword. You can see it's pretty long, and I don't know how a 13-year-old kid gets a hold of a weapon of this caliber, but hey, clearly this kid is hanging around these streets.
Irresponsible parents. That's how.
I'm getting the vibe that this guy, he's probably influenced by a lot of violent pop music in today's day and age. We already know. We already know there's a lot of drill music out there, street music that glamorizes violence and murder. And a lot of young boys are influenced by this stuff. So I'm pretty sure that this kid is one of them. However, like I said, I haven't been able to officially find verifiable info to indicate that this is the actual person who took Oliver's life. But I think it's pretty obvious at this point.
So, number one, this is why I'm saying in this podcast series, right? Because this one is a series. You have to be involved directly in the child's life. You have to be involved directly in those children's lives. And it doesn't matter if you have to go through their rooms, if you have to go through. First and foremost, as a responsible parent, you should be locking your weapons up. Whatever you want to do at nighttime, when you go and lock your bedroom door, and you want to make sure you keep something near you, close enough near you to where if somebody kicks in your door at nighttime, you can respond. That's on you. The door's locked, right? And you wake up in the morning, you put your weapon away. Whatever your weapon of choice is, I don't care if it's a golf club, bowling ball, a bat, whatever you use. Because there's certain things you want to make sure that your kids, if they are involved or if they are influenced by things like this, they don't get any ideas in their head. And it's your fault when they do get that idea in their head and they snatch your stuff up. Like the kid that just recently shot up the school and the parents are in trouble now. And I've seen a post on TikTok just recently, Asian guy, maybe it was Instagram, Asian guy, who said that your diet isn't only the food that you consume. If you're listening to drill music, if you're listening to whatever you're listening to and you're allowing to enter into your mind, you're still consuming it. It's still part of your diet. This is stuff that heavily influences. And I used to fall when rap was part of arguments in Congress. I used to go with that narrative that it doesn't influence anything, but it does, because once you idolize somebody and you see the lifestyle that they live or the lifestyle that they talk about, you there's a very high chance that you'll begin to want to go that direction and steer your life in that direction.
Because some things you don't need law enforcement to come out and tell you. Like, it's pretty obvious.
Hey, listen, you dumb old you. I'll kill you, fam. I'll end you. Watch, if you're on badness, yeah? If you're on bad, hey, listen, I'm coming outside your school tomorrow. Be there, have your shank, and we'll see where I've gone.
And also, I found an interesting Reddit thread discussing, Oliver's murder. And people in that thread were speculating that at most she would get either a year in prison or some kind of light tap on the wrist due to her age. And this speculation comes from the fact that she's a 13-year-old and she's a girl and she comes from a wealthy family. However, based on what I could see, this post has now been removed by Reddit moderators. I suppose they don't want people talking about the case on their website. But I just want to know something. Like, realistically speaking, if things were to go as planned, right? According to Skylar, what she created some blueprint in her head to execute this plan to teach her boyfriend a lesson. If he had survived, what did she think was going to happen? Like, she would lure Ollie to the park, get stabbed in the hand as she suggested, then what? Would the killer tell Ollie, hey, about the time you yelled at her at that party because you sent nudes to some other guy? Like, I can't imagine an outcome that would make Ollie think, you know what? My girlfriend Skylar's right. Okay, Skylar, I'm sorry for yelling at you for sending nudes to other guys. Can you ever forgive me? Like, what did she think that was actually going to happen? Like, that just goes to show you how immature and stupid this 13-year-old girl is. And now, as far as what the law enforcement in Reading, England have done to the suspects in this case, they've all been detained under youth detention custody, and their trial is to be set on the 21st of June, like I said before. And as for the late Oliver Stevens, a petition has been set up on change.org, and this petition is aiming for 50,000 signatures, and it calls for a ban on lethal weapons without a license, or all lethal weapons owned under the age of 21. And as much as I would like to think that our late Ollie is the last victim of such a brutal attack and loss of his life, we all know that that won't be true. The best thing we can do to prevent this sort of thing from happening again is to educate the younger generation. Help them realize that even though movies and pop music may glamorize killing and, violence in general, since we all know that a lot of young boys are influenced by this kind of stuff, they should be educated on the fact that it's all an expression of art and should not be taken as real life situations. But yeah, that's pretty much it for our discussion on the murder of Oliver Stevens. Let me know what you think down below about this whole incident. I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below.
Yeah, let me know what your thoughts and opinions are. I'm still very heavily of the opinion, do your damn job as parents. That's it. This whole video nauseated me. It should have never, especially with the little 13-year-old girl. Yo, dog. I honestly, really, truly feel nauseated right now. Having her even up there looking like that. Like, I have daughters, you know what I mean? And I try to be a influence as much as I can and be like, no, that's not how you act. Now I gotta talk to my wife. I gotta have a whole conversation with my wife. I'm gonna let her watch this video first. Yo, I have nothing else left to say. Please support me as a brand new content creator. Hit like, subscribe, if you like things like this. I'm out. Until next time, I gotta go get my mind right. I gotta watch some more comedy or something like that, something that makes me laugh, because this was absolutely atrocious. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, Gary Shamel, I'm out.